Good morning, Joe. Can you hear me okay? Mike, can you hear me okay? Good morning, Commissioner Gonzalez. Can you hear me okay?
Hey, hi, Mike. I can hear you okay?
Perfect. I'll see if Commissioner Gonzalez, can you hear me? Joe Hinojosa, can you hear me, sir?
I think his microphone is not working on Join Jose.
Mr. Hosa, if you can hear me, I can't hear you. I see that you're off of mute, but we can't hear you. Good morning, Saul. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
Hello?
It seems like Jaime-
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
you can hear us. Okay,
Awesome.
good.
Morning, Joe.
Good morning. ¿Cómo amanecieron?
Todo bien, sir.
Qué bueno. Is
Joe,
my name
how-
showing up as Dad or Joe?
Well,
Your dad.
you,
Okay, let me
right,
change it.
the dad seems the only one that your microphone works on. Pero
I guess so.
good morning, Chairman. Can you hear us okay, sir?
Yes, sir, perfect.
Qué bueno.
Yeah, we've got a new system going on in my office, so we're trying to, if anything comes up that you need to tell me, please do so, because we're
Sir,
in the process of experimenting.
of course, no problem, sir. Mr. Lucio, good morning. You hear us okay?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Lucio.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm just gonna check up. Raul did make it to the meeting in San Benito, right?
He sure did. He
Okay,
fell asleep there a little bit, but we had to wake him up.
okay, well, that's good, as long as he was present, you know.
You getting clear from the what lights in the back?
Morning.
That's okay. Good morning, Sonia. So I think it's what it sounded like.
Morning, ma'am.
Yes, it is.
Mr. Trevino, good morning, sir. How are you? Can you hear us okay? Perfect. Ms. Gonzalez, good morning, sir.
Jaime, I think I'm having trouble with my camera. I'm going to log off and log back on again, see if it
Okay, ma'am.
helps.
Yes, ma'am. Chairman, the time is 9 a.m., sir.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome. Thank you, sir. We'll call the meeting to order and welcome everyone today to the meeting. We are going to go ahead and do a roll call to establish a quorum. Jaime?
Yes, sir. Good morning. Jose Hinojosa.
He's on. Where are you, Joe?
Talked to him earlier. Jose Hinojosa?
I see him on the screen, but I don't see him on the picture.
Okay.
Joe, we need your picture on the screen for you to be officially
Yeah.
on.
Yes, please reminder, everyone does have to have the camera facing at them at all times with your
All
name
right,
listed.
I'm
Perfect.
here.
Got you, Joe. Chairman
Thank you.
Garza,
Here.
Mr. Daniel Lucio,
Present.
morning, sir.
Good
Mr.
morning.
Hudson Deoy,
Here.
good morning, sir.
Morning.
Mr. Fuentes did send an email. He has a proxy, Mr. Saul Garcia. Perfect. Mr. Garcia there. Mr. Joey Trevino. Morning, sir. Mr. Joe Khalifa.
Good morning.
Morning, Joe. Mr. Jose Caso.
Present.
Morning, Mr. Caso.
Good morning.
Miss Sonia Lambert.
Present.
We see you, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Mr. Yazul Mia.
Present. Good morning.
Morning. Commish Eduardo Gonzalez. I know I saw him on earlier.
I'll text him to turn on his camera.
Yes, sir. Mr. Raul, Commissioner Raul Peña Jr. And Mr. Alan Moore.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Non-voting members, Mr. Willie Cupid. Mr. Brian Hertuck.
This is Willie Cupid. I'm here.
Good morning, sir. Thank you.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, good. Mr. Brian Hertuck. Miss Nelda Barrera.
Morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Ms. Barrera. Mr. Adrian Perez. Miss Shonda Mace.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Miss Mace. Miss Megan Ingram.
President Lehman.
Morning. Mr. David Ramirez.
Morning, present.
Good morning, sir. I did receive an email from Mr. Manny Cruz, Chairman. He was not going to be able to attend today from the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council.
Okay.
Mr. Ramon Macias. Miss Lupita Trinidad Ramos. Mr. Nick Gallegos. And Miss Michelle Garcia. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Jaime.
Yes, sir.
We will proceed to item number 3, which is discussion and review of written public comments that may have been received. Jaime, do you have anything that we need to look at?
No, sir. No comments received for today's meeting, sir. As of
Okay,
now.
thank you, sir.
If I
Item
could
number
interject, Commissioner, I
Yes,
did,
sir.
this is Hudson, I did submit one through the website yesterday. I just, we used the utility that was on the website and I don't know where it went, but
Okay,
I will look that up right now, Mr. Lloyd.
do you wish to make that comment now since you sent it in written, Dr. Dale?
Go ahead, Mr. Lloyd.
I could do that.
Yeah, and that way we can record it, okay?
Go ahead, Mr. Lloyd.
I believe you're muted.
There,
Thank you.
here we go. This is regarding the RFPG website, okay? And I compared it with other websites or other RFPG websites. And there were some things, this is just for, suggestions, things that were missing, like things that are missing. Public comment archive, okay? We have a place for public comments, but at other places, they archive those public comments. So you people can see what was already, commented upon. Under the useful links, which is on our website, there are 3 entities that might be useful, like the TWDB flood planning link, the Texas flood link, and the flood information clearinghouse link. In regards to the members, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see anything regarding the executive committee, who's the chair and such. Maybe I missed that. Again, on other websites, they include who the technical consultant is Again, maybe I missed that, but I didn't see that on our website. That's it.
Noted. Thank you, Mr. Dewey.
Thank you very much. And if we find your written comments, in the document, we'll go ahead and make sure and make them part of the record, Dr. Dale. Okay.
Thank you.
And we will look at those opportunities that you just presented to us to make sure that, the more information that we can have on the website to be able to share with folks that are interested in looking at us, the better off that we will all be. Item number 4 is discussion and review of discussion and action as appropriate. Consideration of approval of minutes from the previous meeting of November the 17th. The minutes were sent to us. Everyone, I hope, had a chance to review them. If there is any comments, discussion, corrections, deletions, please tell us now before we take any action. If not, I will entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved, Hinojosa.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item that we have is discussion and update from the Texas Water Development Board. Megan, are you going to do that for us?
Commissioner Garza, yes, I have no general updates this morning, so I'm good for this item.
None at all. Thank you so much, Megan. Item number 6, discussion, update, and potential action on voting member representing municipalities. Jaime, would you update us on that, please?
Yes, sir, Chairman and committee members. We did go out a second time for solicitations. We advertised put the solicitation out for 15 days. We did receive one within the time that was given to receive solicitations from Mr. Rene Estrada. I know that I did forward that over to the committee. Mr. Estrada currently serves as he's a resident of the city of Combs and currently serves as a councilman for the city of Combs. At this time, Chairman, if the committee would like to take this item up for discussion and possible action. Like I said, we did receive only one within the time allotted for submission.
And that particular application meets the requirements of the slot.
Meets the requirements of the slot, Chairman, and then, like I said, it is up for discussion with the committee. But like I said, he is a current council member for the city of Combs.
I make a motion to accept.
Seconded.
Okay, any other comments or discussions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I believe I saw Mr. Estrada online.
I believe so, sir. Mr. Estrada, if you're on your line, if you'd like to comment, sir.
Good morning. Thank you
sir.
very much for the opportunity to serve. This is a group that I'm going to be proud to be a part of. I look forward to reaching out to many of you for advice as we go forward, making important decisions that affect the entire region. Also, feel free to contact me. I think many of you already have my contact information. Otherwise, we'll get a group and I'll send out my direct line so that you can reach me anytime you want to give me some feedback. But I look forward to working with the group and to making a difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada, for taking on the responsibility. We look forward to your presence at our meetings. And Saul will share with all of us your contact information that you provided to him, okay? So I'm not Saul, Jaime.
Yes, sir.
Jaime.
I'll send that out. Yes, sir, of course.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 7 is discussion and potential action to authorize the planning group sponsor to negotiate and execute an amendment to the regional flood planning grant contract with Texas Water Development Board to incorporate additional funding for the first cycle of the regional flood planning, including necessary revisions to the contract scope of work and budget. Jaime, would you give us a report on that, please?
Sir, I know that we sent out the, we have not made a move. We hadn't received authorization from the committee. So we've revised it accordingly and looked at it. We haven't done any negotiations with our technical consultant. I know that after our last meeting, Chairman, you requested that I email this out to the group. I did send out the amendments and the task. As of today, I have not received any comments from the group. So just looking for your authorization so we can move forward with these negotiations and so we can execute the amendment. But of course, welcome any comments from the committee or yourself, Chairman, as it relates to this item and to the email that I sent out after our last meeting.
I will open it up to the group to see if there's any comments. I think the agreement is pretty standard. The only thing that I see is attachment 1, which you might bring up on the screen if you can, of the exhibit. So it would be attachment 1 of amendment 1.
Commissioner, is this in Jaime's email or my email that I sent shortly afterwards?
It would be in, I think it was in Jaime's email.
Okay.
That's where I got it. But I think I shared it with you too, Megan. If you can get it here.
Is this the contract amendment itself, Commissioner? Because I can pull that up if you'd like.
Yes, amendment 1, and it'd be attachment 1 of amendment 1.
It was the email you sent out, Megan, and it's, I believe, page 1 of 3, attachment 1.
Right.
It has the task expense budgets.
Let's see.
1 of 3, and the pages I think that I want to make sure that everyone looks at would be page 1 of 3 and page 2 of 3, which basically shows the budget associated with this amendment, so everybody can understand where the new dollars would be going into. Where can I get, where do I go to all the participants?
Let's see, Commissioner, I just realized my only hesitation on that is that I don't know if the contract amendment itself was posted in the.
It was not posted, man, from
Well, it's a draft. It's a draft. Would it have to be posted since we circulated it to everyone, Megan?
Really, anything that's shared at a public meeting for meeting materials really should have been posted in the meeting materials for the. Am I echoing for all of you?
No.
You're good, Megan. So what you're telling me is we can't share this publicly to discuss it when we're looking at negotiating on this particular item?
Right, I will not, Commissioner, but I'll defer to Jaime and to you if you would like to.
Okay, Jaime?
Commissioner, I mean, I've sent it out to the group, so I mean, I have no issue if that's okay with you, Chairman, bringing it up. I'm just trying to locate the right one I sent you. So, but if you have it in an email, we can bring it up and discuss it there. Or I can go over the amounts that were, I have them here in front of me, the amounts that were revised, received from the Water Development Board for the certain tasks.
Okay.
So for task 11, outreach and data collection support tasks 1 through 9, the revised budget amount is $104,273.00. And the number 12, perform identified flood management evaluations, evaluate and recommend additional flood mitigation projects. That was at $322,302. And then for task number 13, preparation and adoption of the amended regional flood plan, that was $375,525.00, sir, for a total of $802,100. And that amount, the 802,100 is the new amended amount from the Water Development Board. Those were the three that were changed or revised.
Okay, and you know, the one, I did a printout on the email you sent me and the numbers were different on that. Are these numbers that were suggested by Texas Water Development Board to you as a sponsor? You're muted, Jaime.
That's what I received, yes, sir, as a draft.
Okay, so there must have been a previous draft because I have a draft that shows task 11 at $104,000, task 12 as $497,000, and task 13 is $200,000.
Megan, can you?
Chairman Garza, this is James Bronikowski from the Texas Water Development Board. Megan was having some technical issues and had to drop off for a moment, but yes, I can clarify this question.
Thank you, James.
The amounts listed in the draft that we sent to you, yes, are just suggested allocations, but the group is free to adjust those as needed.
Okay, thank you.
But the total has to be the same, right? Is that
Correct,
right?
correct. The total has to be the same, and this amendment includes 3 new tasks, task 11, 12, and 13. And for those tasks, we have suggested an allocation of that total 802,000 that Jaime mentioned, but those allocations are open to changes by the group here. So however y'all would like to allocate that 802,000 amongst those 3 items is up to the group here. But yes, we did offer some suggestions.
Are those tasks independent of the other? Well, they're not independent, but can they be compartmentalized to where someone else, some other entity can do it? Or are we in negotiations with just the one consultant? I guess that's my question.
Sure, that is up to the group to decide. I will say that yes, these are separate but related tasks. Task 11, of course, is intended to supplement the current scope of work. So the current task 1 through 10. Task 12 is intended to help the group perform some of these flood management evaluations that the group has identified, so that y'all have further information to further data and further information to evaluate potential projects to include in the plan. And task 13 is intended to help with preparation of everything from task 12 and to include that into a future amended regional flood plan that would be due in the summer following the due date for summer 2023. And so to answer your question, these are related to the existing scope of work. And so the work being done by your existing consultant, it will definitely be closely related and follow along with a continuation of that same work. The selection of technical consultants is up to the group here. However, I will advise this is a very shortened time frame, especially in this first planning cycle, and that additional procurements or re-procuring or re-soliciting for a new technical consultant may contribute to a considerable time. So I just want to make the group aware of that.
Very good. Appreciate it.
The procurement process, when you follow that, usually is about how many days? 60 days or?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
45 to 60 days.
Right. So at the end of the day, we would be extending some of the work to be performed by that long, going through the process of the solicitation, right?
Correct, Chairman.
I know I got a lot of calls. Any other comments or questions or discussion from anyone online, that has any concerns or issues, at the end of the day, our goal is to produce the best product that we can produce for our region, to make sure that we have what we need to help different communities, different counties, different municipal entities to hopefully have a work product that they can use to access, construction dollars at the end of the day. So, or projects that will contribute to resiliency of our communities, so it's up to you all what direction we go. I just wanted to make sure that we vet it out totally, that we're all aware of what's going on. To me, outreach is a major concern that has not been addressed to the level and extent that I'd like to see done. I think that I know that we had very limited resources in the existing contract to do that. So the job that has been done has been good, but I think more needs to be done in reaching out to the folks. We're delineated in our 3-county area in the southern part of the region of the flood group plan, but the upper area, I think, needs some attention, in my opinion.
Is this a task that can be compartmentalized more so than the others, and even provide some sort of oversight, that it won't be so incumbent on just this committee to overlook the duties of the consultant? If we just have that one firm in charge of everything, and it'll be incumbent upon this committee to oversee it and provide guidance. And it'll be critical that we don't drop the ball, going back to your statements, Commissioner, that it's in the interest of this whole region that we carry out our duties resourcefully and with due diligence to make sure that these funds are used appropriately, effectively, and in the long run defendable to the public.
Commissioner Garza, this is Hudson again. Your the level of importance of public education on this is right up there for me. If we don't do an adequate job of public education through this process, I don't think it's going to go quite as well at the end as we would like. If people don't know what's going on and they find out things, way too late or something like that. Again, education is one of the most important things that we can do as part of this process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from any of the other members? Joey?
Commissioner, just the concern that Water Development Board just brought up on the timeline, would that affect, what we're doing here? This is going to delay us a little bit more and possible hamper some of the funding that's available.
Good comments, Joey. Mr. Khalifa, any comments, sir?
I don't, Commissioner. If you're ready for a motion, I can do that.
Okay.
Commissioner.
I just want to make sure that I give everybody an opportunity, if they wish to make any kind of comment on this issue, that they do so now, because I don't want to end up, saying we should have done this or we should have done that. Sonia?
Commissioner, if I could, I want to point out, are we discussing agenda item 7 or agenda item 8? Because agenda item 7 is to authorize Jaime and his team to negotiate and execute the contract amendment.
We're discussing agenda item 7 because we need to know what we need to do in agenda item 7 before we even go to 8.
Okay. I just want to note, especially when the time comes, that education and training are not eligible under our contract. So they're not part of our scope of work. So we can discuss that when we get to 8, but I just want to make sure I bring that up when it's pertinent.
Right. But outreach and data collection is.
Correct.
Commissioner, I just wanted to ask, I know there's $802,000 allocated for these 3 tasks. My only question is not knowing how much is going to be spent for each one of them going, and if there's an opportunity in the future to amend those amounts to another task if necessary.
Megan, that would be a question that I need to ask of you. Once we approve the budget that is being proposed, is there opportunities to amend moving forward?
Yes, there are. In general, there are always opportunities to amend. Anything above a 35% change needs to be requested from us. But in terms of the additional funding tasks, task 11, which is outreach and data collection, and task 13, which is actually preparation and adoption of the amended plan, both of those with a request to the TWDB, you have the opportunity to allocate those to other tasks.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Ms. Lambert? Thank you.
Commissioner or Chairman, I apologize.
That's fine.
I guess can somebody, just because this gets a little bit drawn out, if this item is approved, what will be the consequence of that?
The consequences is that we will then proceed to the next item, but we decide what direction we go in moving forward.
So right now, essentially, we're saying that we will accept the additional funding from the Water Development Board, and then
yes, sir.
The next item will be how that funding will be utilized.
So, and it's, I mean, I feel comfortable as long as we, after Megan told us that the numbers can be amended if need be. You know, I don't have a problem with Mr. Khalifa making a motion as he was starting to do so just a little while ago. Unless there's other comments. Mr. Khalifa, are you ready to make your motion?
I'd like to make the motion to approve this item as presented.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Lucio, thank you, sir. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those
Aye.
opposed, same sign. Motion carries, and we will proceed with the negotiation process of Jaime with Water Development Board, our sponsor, in making sure that we address what we need to address. Item number 8 is discussion and potential action to authorize a planning group sponsor to prepare and present to the Regional Flood Planning Group for approval a draft for request for proposals for additional planning scope of work, namely tasks 11, 12, and 13, and subtasks that create and deliver a member developed program to include training and educational workshops and the hosting of the Regional Flood Planning Group monthly meetings at various venues within the region. Megan, I know that you have a comment on this that you want us to make sure that we not consider on the agenda because they're not items that can be funded from this contract. Would you please tell us what they are and what we need to not consider for this agenda item?
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. So really for this agenda item 8, there were just 2 notes that I had, and my manager, James, already went over the one for procuring another consultant. The group is welcome to do that with the consideration that procurement does take time. So folding that into the planning process and the related due dates is just something that I'd like you all to consider. And secondly, the part of the item that says subtasks that create and deliver an RFPG member development program to include training and educational workshops. So training and education of that sort are not eligible costs under our contract, so they would not be part of the scope of work. Those are my only 2 notes, Commissioner.
Yeah, and the hosting of the meetings at venues is okay, as long as it's for outreach purposes, right?
And is that, can you clarify what that would mean exactly?
That would mean that possibly we would host meetings, for example, in Laredo for the upper area on a person-to-person basis.
And would that be for like you want to host RFPG meetings around the region or additional meetings for outreach or both?
Outreach. Not necessarily a called meeting, but an outreach meeting, to be able to, have a meeting in the Rio area, have a meeting in the Laredo area minimally, I mean, I think down here in the Valley, we're pretty well covered, we have very good data, very good plans. But some of those other areas up there is my concern. And
Sure.
it's just a matter of doing outreach.
Yeah, so that kind of meeting would be eligible, but that does fall under the other expenses category of our contract, and that amount is capped. So that's just something to consider.
Okay, yeah, which is fine.
Okay.
Okay. Well, everybody heard what we cannot look at doing, so what are
I-
the?
I
what
have
are
I have a question, Chairman. You're making a point of separating outreach from training. Can you give us an example of what you mean by that? Training, what you're envisioning as training versus outreach? I mean, outreach is, in a way is some sort of training to the public.
It's semantics, Mr. Hinojosa. I mean, the idea is to be able to be, I know that Christina and her team have done a very good job of trying to reach out through emails, but it is a large geographic area that we're looking at. And it is challenging for some of the folks in the northernmost part of the region to totally be on board. My thoughts are that we should reach out to them physically, make visits with them. And that would be the outreach piece that I'm talking about, either a
Just don't call
contract.
it training.
Well,
Just don't call it training,
It's not
apparently.
training, it's outreach and wanting to incorporate their hazard mitigation plans into our plan and making sure that everything is included.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. It's just the training part. And that question was for Ms. Christina as well? Is that right?
Christina, yeah.
Yeah. Christine, could you specify what you mean by training for my own edification, if nothing else?
Training?
No, Christina
Yes.
did not put that item together. I did, Joe, and I just kind of, cut and pasted items that I thought we might consider looking at,
Okay. No, I get that. I get that. But the comments from the Texas Water Development Board, the representative, she makes a big point of making sure it's not called training. And I just wanted to, in my mind, know specifically what you meant by training. Is she like training technical staff, or what is she referring to?
Sure. So I think that is an important distinction. So in terms of training, the Texas Water Development Board, we can offer training to y'all as members, whether it's putting on a presentation or a helpful training in that way. But grant funds cannot, for example, be used to pay for like an external speaker to come train the group and educate the group. So there's training, and then there's outreach, which is intended specifically to purposefully gather input from the public. And that can include some educational like explanations and background on the regional flood planning process. But I think that's very distinct from a training. So there's training and there's outreach. Under the training portion, we can give you training, but not from other external speakers or something like that. Does that make sense?
Okay, well, that makes it clear, a little bit clearer to me. So you could participate in some of this outreach and give us some instruction, and that's okay. That's fundable.
Right.
Okay.
And the group is also welcome to, Commissioner, I think, as you alluded to, hold outreach meetings throughout the region to invite public comment. Like that is also eligible.
Okay. Well, that helps clarify things. Thank you.
I've got a question that I think we've been over, but just to clarify. Is there going to be like a sort of appendix of projects that are going to be compiled as an end result of this study? And is there going to be funding potentially in the future that's going to be limited to only those projects and not projects that aren't listed? Is that part of our tasks?
Yes, sir, there will be. And I think agenda item number 10, we will get into that, Mr. Caso, because we have the priorities and objectives that we set out. I know that the projects that are identified have to be within those priorities to receive the favorable treatment, but we will discuss that on item number 10.
Thank you, Chairman.
And Megan, thank you so much for clarifying that. I think that helps the group understand that, we have tools available from the Water Development Board to help us in making sure that if we need help in any of the communities for any outreach meetings that occur, that you will be there to help us in that process and making sure that folks understand the importance of what we're trying to get them to the table for, bottom line.
Yes, that's right. And just to reiterate here, like we, as a team, our flood planning team, we make a point to note items that are useful for us to present on, whether it be me presenting here to the Region 15 meetings or for our group to put on webinars for all, for all of the chairs and that kind of thing. But if there's ever something you feel like you need more discussion on and that you'd like me to give a presentation on, that's what I'm here for. So I just want to, exactly what you're saying, I just want to drive that point home.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, we go back to the item, what are the wishes of the group as to how we proceed here? I need either thoughts or I need motions or something. We need to just.
Well, we've talked about negotiations. Is this where we're at right now? And if so, are we talking about the current consultant or other consultants?
We are talking about the planning group sponsor, being authorized to present and prepare a draft request for proposals for additional scope of work. Okay. Either doing that or continuing with the current consultant and amending a contract with them. That would have to be at a later meeting because that's not on the agenda. But we either do one or the other.
Chairman, if I may just make a comment also on behalf of this, being the sponsor and the contract holder for this technical consultant. Obviously, if there's some tasks that we're not, that we feel can be done better, I mean, we can maybe allow the opportunity for us to meet, with the executive committee and our technical consultant and let them know and see if they can put forth a plan for us to maybe meet your goals and expectations. So just a thought, we can also do that as well, meet with our current technical consultant and let them know, again, what you and the group are expecting, and maybe we can address it moving forward and save us the time of the procurement. Those are just my comments, Chairman.
Okay, thank you so much, Jaime. I think those are good comments.
Commissioner, I would also like to raise a point. Another option for the group would be to direct the current technical consultant to subcontract with a firm for outreach. That would be another option to consider.
That's correct.
Okay, so that is possible within their contract also, right, Megan?
Yes.
Would that option expedite the procurement process? I guess that's the question.
I would imagine it would because there's already a contract in place. Is that correct, Megan?
Right. I think it would depend on HAP's procurement process. I'm a little less clear on that. But I wanted to raise another point too, that some groups have also contracted with an outreach firm just for a certain task of the scope. So I just want to bring that up too. So instead of 11, 12, and 13, it could be just for like that for the outreach component in task 11. So that's an option as well.
Because that's really, for me, that's really the critical piece of what we're doing. As far as, I think technically our technical consultant is doing good work and all, and they're trying as hard as they can. And I know they had a limited budget, as I mentioned before, to do that work. But I think that we should possibly consider, doing such as you're saying, Megan.
Chairman, if I could ask Megan, can we procure another subconsultant that was not on our original team?
Yes, I believe you can, and it would just be following your own procurement process.
Okay.
And on our end, Chris, it'll be a matter of a supplemental introducing the new vendor to the agreement. Yes. So our procurement obviously process would cut down tremendously.
Okay. No, I understand.
Okay, so it would be possible, Megan, to go through that route.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Would the group have a say-so on who the subconsultants are then? I mean, would we know prior to a subcontractor being considered and have the opportunity to comment either way? Or, and given authorization right now, are we given authorization for our sponsor to hire or subcontract anyone they choose to?
Yes, Lambert, the way it would work is Hampton Associates would introduce it in the form of a supplemental, and I would bring that supplemental up to the committee for approval, ma'am. And obviously with the new vendor information. And then it would be up to the committee to decide. And we've already received that authorization from our board to present it to Region 15 committee, and it would be up to the Region 15 committee to accept the supplemental and with the vendor. That's how that would work, man. So yes, you would have an opportunity to select or to choose, to vote.
Thank you, Jaime.
If I may, Chairman. This is Rene Estrada. I was going to say in my experience and I'm glad that you guys are giving the opportunity to speak here. Whenever we open it up to other possibilities, not only does it make the people working on things right now try harder and better, but it gives an opportunity for other input to come in to really enhance what we're trying to do. So I really encourage what we're trying to do here, Chairman. Are we ready for a motion, or do we need somebody else to do a motion at this point?
I will entertain a motion. I will entertain more discussion, whichever. Mia, do you have any comments from the metropolis of Laredo?
Mr. Chairman, I know we are, time is an essence, and we have a consultant. We want to go through another procurement process because whoever we hire for this public outreach has to work with the consultant. But we also do have right to tell our technical consultant, no, we don't want to work with this firm. And so for me to expedite, I think we can authorize our existing consultant to bring a firm for the public relations, and then we can vote on it. We can even give them a couple of names, which we feel comfortable. They don't have to follow it, but that will expedite the process. Otherwise, we're looking at another probably 2.5 months before we have another consultant.
So, Megan, question for me. As far as the discussion and potential action here on this request, this item is dealing with a draft request for proposals. In essence, what we would need to do would be to table this item, right? And authorize our sponsor to bring back to the committee an amended contract to include those discussion items that we just had that hopefully would be agreeable to everyone at our next meeting. Is that?
I think that does sound right to me.
Okay.
If it's going to be a supplemental amendment to the existing contract with HAF and the drainage district, that does make sense to me.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to recommend to the group and see if it's okay with all of you that we go ahead and table this item, but authorize the executive committee to be part of the decision making with our plan sponsor in how we bring an amended contract to the board that would hopefully be agreeable to all of us. Is that?
And Chairman,
Yep.
I apologize to interrupt, but I have an engagement I need to leave for. So I was going to ask for your authorization to head out and leave my proxy, Limaira Reyes, on my behalf.
Okay, well, we can vote real quick if everybody would like to on tabling and authorizing the executive committee to negotiate along with the plan sponsor with our technical consultants to present a plan for us for approval at the next meeting.
I so moved.
Okay, moved by Sonia, second by Mr. Estrada. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Executive Committee, welcome to the holidays. Okay, thank you, Mr. Caso.
Thank you, Chairman.
I feel like a kindergarten teacher. You're excused.
Thank you.
Item number 9. Thank you, Megan, so much for clarifying things for us, and Christina for your input also, and everybody's discussion. At the end of the day, we all want what's best for our region, period. You know, item number 9 is discussion and potential action to authorize, I'm sorry. Let's see. Yes, potential action to authorize planning group sponsor to request from consultant leading the planning group's regional flood planning project to present to us a detailed percentage of work completed by task to accompany each invoice submitted for payment, and a hard copy report shall be submitted, and if warranted, and an oral presentation may be requested. The main thing is, you know, we want to know where we're at with the tasks that are being worked on. And this is more for Christina. I did have a nice visit with her yesterday. The visit was good. There is a work, did you call it a work page that you do with Water Development Board, Christina?
Yes, sir. It's a report. And we do submit also a worksheet that breaks down our invoice.
Okay. You know, what I would like to do, just so that the group knows where we're at by tasks on things and what is occurring by a technical consultant, is when there is an updated worksheet, whether it be monthly or bi-monthly, that we would have an agenda item, Mr. Salazar, to include that for the board, just for transparency and informational purposes.
Yes, sir, Chairman.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, I don't think that we need to take action aside from asking you to put it on the agenda on each meeting. And if there is an updated worksheet, just present it to us and everybody's aware of what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if there's any questions, of course, we can ask Christina those questions at the time. Okay.
Will do, Chairman.
Okay. I'll go to item number 10, and Christina, I'll hand it over to you. This is discussion and update by technical consultant. And this is the review of the technical memo by technical consultant for submission to the Texas Water Development Board by January the 7th of this coming year. And I hope everybody had a chance to look at it. But if not, we're going to be looking at it now.
Do y'all see the presentation?
Yes.
Can y'all see? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, we can, we can see it.
And what I will ask is that all of us mute our phones so that there'll be less interference with Christina's presentation. If there is any comments or questions, just you know, unmute and ask as we move along. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman, RFPG Board, Jaime. I want to thank you today for giving me the opportunity to present. We are going to be presenting the technical memo. So let me go to the next slide. There we go. So this morning I'm going to present the tech memo, and I will be asking for your approval with noted corrections and additions at the end of the presentation. This technical memo is due into the Water Development Board by January 7th, 2022. And before I get into the contents of the technical memo, I want to remind you that the Water Development Board intends this technical memo to just be a draft, a midpoint work in progress deliverable, just like a checkup. It's meant to ensure that we're making the appropriate progress towards the development of our regional flood plan and meeting the requirements of the contract. What we submit in the tech memo can be changed, enriched, enhanced during the plan development, and it will, it's going to change. So if we need to make changes to the content of what's included in the tech memo after the submission deadline, we don't have to resubmit it. Like, any changes are going to be included in the draft of the regional flood plan. And that's what really counts, is the contents of the draft and the final versions of the regional flood plan. That information is going to supersede anything that we deliver at this point. So moving on, the contents of the technical memo are defined in task 4C of the scope of work and in exhibit C, the technical guidelines for the regional flood planning. The format of the information is defined in exhibit D, the data submittal for regional flood planning. And I refer to these three documents often. So together with chapters, chapters 361 and 362, they define the requirements of our project. So a lot of the tables that you're going to see, there's a ton of columns, but these are what actually are going to be included in the final report. And we're just filling them in right now. This gives the water development, insight into, the kind of databases that we're putting together, and also lets them know, like, we recognize these are required tables. The Water Development Board did issue clarifications and modifications to these rules via email. The most notable one is that this task, the technical memo, has been split into 2 deliverables. The first half is due January 7th, like the original deadline, but any of the items related to flood risk mapping, those, and there's 3 of those items, have been delayed to March 7. So our focus in the next meeting, like in January, you'll start to see, we've been digesting the Fathom information, and that's because that was delayed in getting to us. That's why those items have been pushed back. But we'll be presenting to you, these flood risk maps, so you get to see what information we have where as far as, flood mapping. And then we'll move to that second, tech memo deliverable, which is due March 7th. So what we're going over today is what's due in January. So I emailed to y'all because I'm not sure you had the Excel sheets. A lot of these later tables, the PDFs, the way they were formatted, they included all columns in one sheet, so they're very hard to read. I'd ask that you please, when you're reviewing this, to look at the Excel sheets, and I will change the formatting so that they're readable, and these tables are going to span multiple pages just so that they are readable. The first item that's listed in scope of work 4C.1.A is a list of existing political subdivisions with flood-related authority. So we've included the information in the tables provided in the technical guidance and in accordance with the data submittal formats. For this task, we are required to fill out table 3.1, and it requires all of this information. We're looking at the entity ID, its name, the regional flood planning group name and number. And they're doing this because at the end, they're going to combine all the different regions data into the state flood plan. And because of that, everything's prescribed. Every single cell and data type is spelled out for us. And this is the information that they're required from us. So the table and the associated geospatial information also required us to indicate whether the entity was a municipality, a city, a river flood authority, whatever it was. They also asked for the census FIPS code, if it is a county or a census place, and the FEMA CID code. So FIPS code, it's just a federal information processing standard. These are numeric codes assigned that typically deal with US states, and it's kind of like a catalog number. You'll see them on any government issue like FEMA maps. And it's the same thing with the CID codes. Those are similar, and it's a unique identifier for communities. And this kind of just allows this information to be tied to other government information that's out there. And so that's what you see in the Excel sheet. It's the very first workbook that's called Entities. It's also attachment A in the technical guidance. We started off with 140 entities when the Water Development Board gave us the information at the beginning. We weeded out, entities that were not in the region. There's a few, we had Nueces River Authority, which is not in our region. We had other entities. We had some water utility groups like Brownsville Public Utilities, which is part of Brownsville, and they don't do the flood planning part. They do it through the city's arm. So we went from 140 to 130. We did add others into it that were missing from the list. In the list, you'll see that there's 80 entities that have very clear flood authority. Those are the cities, the counties, and the drainage district and river authorities. Then you have others that were a little harder to decipher. And this is the only item where I'm really gonna seek your input and guidance as far as how to proceed. So in addition to that, we had a list of council of governments, irrigation districts, MUDs, navigation districts, and water control and improvement districts. So we have 4 council of governments. When you look at their pages, 2 of them, the column asks whether they are active in flood planning. So 2 of these council of governments don't list drainage at all. And 2 of them do. I mean, they're very active in flood planning. So I think because this is a planning group that brings together all of these other very clear entities that have flood regulation authority, I think we keep them on the list. My recommendation is keep them on the list. Just indicate that they don't have, whether they are active in flood planning or not, but can keep them on the list of entities with flood related authorities. You also have 20 different irrigation districts, and the statutes that create them, their language talk about water conservation. If you call them and ask them if they are active in flood planning, they're going to tell you. Some of them will say no. Others are very active, and they require a review of drainage permits. My recommendation is to keep all the irrigation districts on this list, and then just list those that do indicate that they are active in flood planning as yeses in that column, but keep them on this list as a stakeholder. And outside of those, we have the MUDs, the water control improvement districts and navigation districts. The jurisdictions of the MUDs and the navigations are relatively small, relatively speaking, compared to counties and cities, like their footprint. That I know of, all the MUDs listed in our region don't really do regulate drainage. They do water and sewer. And the navigation districts, obviously, those are along the coast, and they're like a little private development, so they regulate their own drainage, water, all infrastructure. So my question is, do we want to keep them on this list, all of these MUDs, the water control improvement districts, navigation districts, and just indicate that they don't have drainage authority, or do you think that some of these need to be removed? We have in total 130 entities.
Christina, I can tell you, as far as irrigation districts are concerned, there's irrigation districts normally provide just a seep ditch or something to provide drainage to the farmland, but they're not active in providing any drainage per se. It would be the responsibility of the drainage district within that irrigation district to provide that flood planning, and not the irrigation district.
That's true.
But I would recommend that you leave them on there, because even though they're not receiving any revenue for flood planning, sometimes they are involved to some extent. not by authority or anything. It's just that they do provide it in some sense.
I know that in our case here in Cameron County, we've been fortunate enough to have collaborative work done with some of the irrigation districts in utilizing some of their water channeling ability to, get rid of water in flooded areas. And I know that Sonia has been very helpful with us. If there is opportunities in the future in making sure that if we keep them on there, if there's opportunities for them to be able to utilize our information so that we can better move floodwaters, I think we ought to keep them on there, and even some of the MUDs. I don't know about the navigation districts so much or the water control improvement districts, but I know some of the MUDs have large retention areas associated with how they store their water for use, and also serve as retention areas when you have major outfalls. And I'll give you one example. Rancho Viejo is one of them. That MUD owns the Resaca systems, and it becomes a retention area for major stormwater runoff. So I don't know about removing all of them. I think that we ought to be a little more selective in how we remove or keep. I know that even the navigation districts, for example, we've got a project at SpaceX, to give you an example, in which we're dealing with stormwater runoff. And, that's one project. We've got projects within the Brownsville, the Port of Brownsville Navigation District, that they're utilizing a whole lot of stormwater runoff planning associated with the development of what they're doing. So I feel that, we should not just blanket remove, possibly outreach and say, do you want to be part of or not,
Okay.
I agree. This is Joe Hinojosa. I know Delta, I believe they still do have some drainage responsibilities. The irrigation district in Brownsville has to coordinate with the entities there on lowering the resacas for in preparation of flooding events. And oftentimes the irrigation districts are the lowest hanging fruit for the unincorporated areas, where they turn to them for assistance, as is the case in our district, even though we are trying to work just closely with the drainage district to convey all that formally to them, but still we do have to cooperate, and it is incumbent upon everybody to work jointly on this. So I would definitely be keen on keeping them in the loop and as part of this program.
And same with the water control and improvement districts. Just a little history. All of the irrigation districts were established as irrigation districts. We changed our name to Water Control and Improvement District, and back in then again in the 80s went back to irrigation districts, for the exception of 3. But we all have the same responsibilities of providing water, and there's still a lot of irrigation districts that own drainage ditches, but not providing drainage to the system, just to the farmland, but they still own a lot of the infrastructure.
Well, in my thinking, resiliency for our flood planning area includes making sure that, the crop loss due to flooding is taken care of, because, it's a mainstay of our economy. So I just feel that we need to make sure that we don't remove anyone that needs not to be removed.
This is Joe Khalifa. I definitely think irrigation districts need to be included. The last category, to me, the bottom line is, do they make decisions, or do they make decisions that result in people being flooded? And I think we should err on the side of including them and being inclusive, because I think there are decisions they make or that does impact whether people get flooded. So I would like to include more rather than less.
Thank you, Mr. Khalifa. Any other comments from any of the other members that are on? If not, Christine, I think you have your marching orders in that regard. And we can proceed to the next page or the next item that
Yes,
you have
sir.
to present.
No, I appreciate all the discussion. So my understanding is keep everybody. And I think, as Mr. Khalifa says, we're erring on the side of caution that way. So the next table is, yes, associated with scope of work, item 4C1.B. And I included a second list, which is 4C.1.F. For B is looking for the previous studies that were relevant to the development of the RFP. And F is a list of models that were considered also relevant. Models that the RPG considers of most value in developing the regional flood plan. So because some of the studies actually had models and others didn't, I just merged them into one. There's no real set table of what information they needed, but information I included were, the name of the study, a brief description, what the watersheds they impacted, the counties. Also looked at, study date, indicated whether there was a model attached or not. And if there, was, what are the annual probability storms that they looked at? What were the conditions? Did we have both a hydrology and hydraulic model included? And then indicated how we used them. Did we just extract studies or projects from it, or did we actually use the models, in the flood mapping part of it? And then the last column was FEMA status. And that's more of a note to indicate that not every study is created equal. Obviously, the FEMA standards are built to a higher criterion and they're regulatory. And so knowing whether this is just a project study, or if it was master drainage study, or whether it went through and adhered to FEMA regulations. As we create these databases, the desire to use this information, or the ease of using this information, is out there. And so indicating kind of what this kind of level of detail will just help people understand what they're looking at. So that's included in my list of these two lists. So we got 38 thus far. We received 39 studies. 8 of them had models that we could use. And so you'll see those listed in Exhibit B of the tech memo, and also in the Excel worksheet labeled previous studies. So yeah, that really is that list that we had. The sources so far that we got those, like I said, for master drainage studies. We were provided with some letters of map revision, and were provided with the hydraulic and hydrology studies for projects. And we were given a lot of preliminary engineering reports, which I know are models attached to them. So this is something that we didn't receive the actual models, where we need to go back and see, do you have a model? Is it something that we can incorporate into this plan? But we did receive a lot of information. I'm happy to report that. So the fourth item that was listed that needs to be acquired or submitted is the list of our flood mitigation and floodplain management goals that were adopted. Again, there is a table with all this information that's required. The only 2 columns that y'all had not seen before was extent of the area goal that the area goal applies to, whether it was a specific HEC 8 or the entire region, because we didn't really talk about any specific areas or needs in specific areas. I've indicated that these are region-wide for all of the goals. And then I did go ahead and fill in the residual risk. So when residual risk is really after you've implemented after you've met your goal in its entirety, what kind of flood risk remains, And so, if we look at one of ours, it was like increase the number of entities that provide regional detention that could be used for water reuse applications or as part of their floodplain management by over 30%. That was one of the goals that we approved. So the residual risk that indicated was existing flood risk is going to remain for project areas where the proposed regional detention facility does not address existing flood risk. So we're going to be there will be a detention pond placed in. Is it designed to address, a future development? Like if it's for a future development and it's only addressing the needs of that new development, existing flood risk is the same for the rest of the region, right? Because it's not addressing any of that. If it's like in a built out area where, you're specifically building this to address existing flood risk, then you're altering the existing flood risk by that project, but just for that little area. And that's why it's worded that way. And so residual risk is really just a qualitative statement so that you understand you're not going to address all flood risk, but this is a level of flood risk that we're comfortable with, or that this goal will leave. Another one of the goals, just as an example, is increase the number of flood gauges in the region by 30 to 40% for the short term. The residual risk for this that I indicated is flood risk will remain unaltered by the placement of these gauges. It is the intent to use the data from these gauges to implement flood mitigation projects, to validate models and advanced warning programs. Like all of that hopefully will, but just the simple placement of the gauges themselves is not going to alter the flood risk. And we don't have a crystal ball as to what's going to become with what we're going to use that data for. And so, those are, I've gone ahead and filled in all the residual risks associated with each of the goals.
Christina.
Yes, sir.
One question, where do the hazard mitigation action plans come into play with what you're presenting right now?
So when those are the later tables. So when it comes to identified projects, identified strategies, identified evaluations, we extracted a lot of those. So, many of you are involved in like the hazard mitigation action plan development. You're looking at specific hazards, right? One of them, storms, flooding, hurricanes. So any of the strategies and projects that you identified as part of those are projects that I could go in and say, okay, Cameron County intends to do this and this to adjust flooding. Brownsville intends to do this and this. Some of them are strategies, some of them are projects. Few were actually evaluations, but that's the intent. And so you'll see those, Chairman, later in the longer list.
Okay. Thank you.
So, like I said, we did what we're required is to submit the goals. I'm not going to belabor them. We had 21 sets, so we had 42 statements, and I've gone ahead and included the extent and the residual risks for all of them. I don't know if anybody had a chance to review them or has any comments as how I presented them, but that is included, and that's your fourth table. The next table we looked at, they wanted the process used to identify potentially feasible FMSs, and FMPs. Now, this was another one of the items that was approved at our last Regional Flood Planning Group meeting on November 17th. And we listed out these 6 steps. I'm not going to really go through them, but I copied over the slides that y'all voted on and approved. And then the real meat and potatoes, I think, of the technical memo is the list of potential FMEs and potentially feasible FMPs and FMSs identified by the Regional Flood Planning Group. And we got the list of FMEs from, gaps from hazard mitigation action plans. Also got, we reviewed all the FIF applications that were included in the IUP, but I think all the studies have been funded already. Any FIF project that hasn't been funded to date, we've included those as a project. And we got several strategies from Hazard Mitigation Action Plan. We did receive a couple of CIPs from a couple of entities, and those projects we've included. We haven't gone through, so the list that you see, we have not gone through all of the Hazard Mitigation Action Plans. So those, there's still a lot of strategies and projects that still need to be included. So they asked for a list of these 3. We broke them into 3 different lists. So in the table, you're going to have 4C.1 for potential FMEs. You're going to have a second table for potentially feasible FMSs and then potentially feasible FMPs. We included, there are tables that are required, and these are the tables that are hard to read, but they have a ton of columns for each of them. This is information that we got. Let me see. So we had 4 FMEs identified. And those, like I said, are primarily from the FIF studies and the hazard mitigation action plans. We've identified 98 feasible FMSs and 160 feasible FMPs. If you look at the tables, you'll notice that a lot of the columns are empty. And that's because when you're looking at hazard mitigation action plans, you don't have number of structures identified. You don't have your benefit cost ratio identified. It's not to say that that information isn't available. So what I'm doing right now is we're inputting all this information, and it's potentially feasible. If those projects were extracted from a master drainage plan, as some of them are, then that information might be available. So I'm leaving them there. The columns at this point are blank, but most importantly, they're identified as feasible because they align with one of the goals that we've identified. So if it's on this list, it lines up with one of our goals, which is a requirement. And I'm going to leave any further evaluation until we go back to the entity. So the next step after completing the download of all the projects and all the strategies is going back and providing each of the entities a list. This is what I have gleaned from information that was provided to us. Does any of this information, do we need to add any projects? Have any of these projects been done? And do you have any studies that will allow us to fill in these columns? So that's kind of the next step for all of this. They're listed as potentially feasible because we still need some more data. But like I said, we have 98 feasible FMSs and 160 feasible FMPs. And like what I alluded to, the last list is a list of FMSs and FMPs that were identified but determined to be infeasible, and including the reason. So the only criteria that we've screened these projects and these strategies for is whether there's a goal associated with them. So we have identified 72 infeasible FMSs, and let me see how many. One infeasible FMP. So the FMSs that were deemed infeasible, their strategies like purchase a generator. You know, there's a lot of these strategies for mitigating flood risk according to hazard mitigation action plan, and it's multiple for the different entities that have the same kind of goal. Another one is to implement outreach programs focused on educating the public, business owners, and other specialty groups. So our goals, I mean, we do have a section dealing with outreach and education, but the way the goals were written is we're targeting, you know, floodplain managers, you know, making them more proficient, getting them certified, and using the Regional Flood Planning Group website to disseminate this information. Because the way they were worded, you know, it's targeting not floodplain managers, they cannot be associated with that goal. So we have options here. We could revise our goals to make these feasible, or we can, you know, leave them the way they are. So there are others, but that's really the kind of, you know, when I went through and associated with goals, is it really lining up? And the one project that was identified as infeasible was a project to retrofit municipal structures for floodplain. That didn't line up with any of our infrastructure goals that we had outlined. And you'll see those again in the last two tables as infeasible FMSs and infeasible FMPs. And the last thing that we will include with our submission is all the geospatial data databases that kind of graphically, you know, represent all of this, all the information included in the tables. So I am looking for approval of the tech memo with any noted corrections or changes.
What I would like to do, Christina, is open it up for any questions at this time, so that in case someone needs clarification on any of what you presented, they have an opportunity to ask, and then we can go from there for moving on to the approval phase. Ladies and gentlemen that are on the call, any comments, questions, concerns, issues that you would like to bring up in regards to what was presented by Christina on what needs to be approved basically today? I'm not hearing anyone come on. I think that you gave us a very good overlook, Christina, and I think a very good report on what you're doing and what you're presenting to us in this regard. You know, the level of review of what existing data is out there, and models and maps and action plans to some extent, you know, in how you've put together the report that you have put together for us, and the depth of information that you've identified on the tables. And I think especially leaving blank those identified items that do correlate to a goal is important, because we don't want to just put aside potential projects that might in the future, you know, be feasible for any of the municipalities, entities, or counties. So, you know, I feel good about what you've done on all of this so far. But again, one more time, is anyone out there wanting to make any comments on this? If not, Christina, please tell me what we need to officially approve as a, like, give me the wording on the motion that we need to make sure that we have.
I would say approve the technical memo as presented with noted changes, which there really wasn't any, for submission to the Water Development Board.
Okay. Does somebody wish to make a motion in that regard?
I'll make the motion.
Thank
I'll
you, Mr.
second.
Khalifa. Second by, who seconded?
Dan Lucio.
Mr. Lucio, thank you so much, sir. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Thank you very much. We will move on to item number 11. Any general public comments, Jaime?
No, sir.
None have come in?
No,
Okay, sir. Thank you. Consideration of date and agenda for the next meeting. I have looked at the calendar. I don't know what January the 12th looks like for folks, or if that's too early of a date to have another meeting. But I would like to make sure that we move on the recommendation that we're going to have from the executive committee and the sponsor on proceeding with the item that we discussed, which is item number 8, I believe, So the sooner we move on that, the sooner we can move on.
Chairman, if I may, we can maybe push it back a week, because I would like to bring on our next one, like you said, the final negotiated agreement, so the committee can vote on the amended agreement. And then also I'd like to see if I can have that supplemental. Of course, I'll forward all the information to the executive committee chairman as well. But that way we can have both items, the amendment and the supplemental, for our next meeting.
So you're talking about the 19th? Jaime?
That would work, Chairman.
Okay. Does anybody have any objections to the 19th of January for our next meeting? Okay, we'll go ahead and set the meeting for the 19th of January, and hopefully we'll by then have everything prepared and ready to go to present to the full board. Okay?
That's our goal.
Okay, then any comments from anyone before we adjourn? If not, wishing everybody a Merry Christmas, safe and prosperous New Year, and most importantly, Omicron is out there. Please stay safe.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.